Okay, let's talk about a song that ruled the airwaves and then disappeared like it never happened. You've probably had this happen. You're driving, flipping through the oldies station, and suddenly a tune hits you straight in the memory. It's got the vibe, the chorus you can't help but hum, and then it's gone. Just like the artist who made it. Well, 1976 was full of those kinds of songs. A year where disco met rock, pop met funk, and the charts were ruled, if only briefly, by bands and singers who had their one big moment in the spotlight and never made it back. So today we're going to rewind to that groovy year and talk about 15 songs that were massive hits, then faded into the vinyl dust of time. You might recognize the melody, you might even sing along, but the artist's name, that's where things get fuzzy. Let's get into the first one, and trust me, it's a catchy one. Okay, you know we had to start here. Afternoon Delight.
Gonna grab some afternoon delight. My motto's always been when it's...
You either loved it or rolled your eyes the second you heard it, but you definitely heard it. Released in the summer of '76, this sugary, sweet, harmony-packed jam came from the Starland Vocal Band, a group that pretty much appeared out of nowhere and then, well, we'll get to that. The song was inspired by a cheeky menu item at a restaurant in Washington, D.C. Seriously. Band member Bill Danoff spotted a dish called Afternoon Delight.
Gonna hold her tight, gonna grab some afternoon delight.
And thought it sounded like the perfect title for something a little playful, a little suggestive, but still somehow innocent. And man, did it hit.
Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon.
The mood was breezy, and it skyrocketed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 by July of that year. It even won a Grammy the next year for Best Arrangement for Voices. For a minute, Starland Vocal Band was everywhere. They had their own summer variety show on CBS, got invited to all the big stages, and then, just like that, they were gone. So what happened? Why couldn't they ride the wave? Well, the short answer, nothing else they released came close to that perfect blend of radio magic. And the long answer, we'll leave that for another episode. But next up is a rock anthem that still gets people fired up. You hear that guitar riff, and you already know what's coming. The Boys Are Back in Town isn't just a song, it's a whole mood. In 1976, Thin Lizzy dropped this track and gave rock fans something to blast through their speakers with the windows down. It came off their album Jailbreak, and wow, it was electric. Guitars that crunched and danced at the same time, a beat that stomped, and lyrics that made you feel like your old gang just rolled back into town. Frontman Phil Lynott had this way of writing that painted pictures, bars, fights, reunions. It all felt cinematic. And those twin guitar lines? That was Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson locking in a sound that would become their signature. The song climbed up to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. Not bad for a group that wasn't exactly a household name in the US. Here's the wild part. Even though they kept making music and had a serious following, they never hit the American charts this big again. Still, this track refuses to die. It's been in movies, commercials, stadiums, you name it. But why didn't Thin Lizzy have more mainstream hits here? Maybe they were just a little too edgy for prime time. Or maybe they were ahead of their time. Either way, they gave us this anthem, and it still slaps. Okay, imagine being on stage and some random voice from the crowd yells, "Play that funky music, white boy." Now imagine turning that into a #1 hit. That's exactly what Wild Cherry did. The lead singer, Rob Parisi, didn't ignore it. He leaned all the way in. He wrote a whole song about it, and suddenly, Wild Cherry had the funkiest track of the year. Play That Funky Music had everything. Guitar riffs, a bass line that made you move, and a chorus you couldn't forget even if you tried. It stormed to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed on repeat in clubs, cars, and roller rinks. This wasn't just a song, it was a party. But here's the thing, Wild Cherry couldn't top it. No follow-up ever came close, and eventually the band faded into memory. Still, that funky groove, it left a permanent mark on the disco era. And it all started with one heckler who shouted the right words at the right time. So what's next? A disco jam that flips the beat completely. Turn the beat around, literally. That was the message behind this 1976 disco classic from Vicki Sue Robinson. This wasn't your typical dance track. It didn't just spotlight vocals or a catchy hook. It celebrated the rhythm section, the percussion, the horns, the stuff that usually stayed in the background. Vicki Sue delivered the vocals with fire. The energy was off the charts. And when the beat hit, instant dance floor. The song cracked the Billboard Hot 100's top 10 and even earned her a Grammy nomination for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. Now, did Vicki have more in the tank? She did keep recording, but nothing else ever reached this level of success. Still, Turn the Beat Around became a disco staple, remixed, covered, and blasted at parties for decades. Next up, a song with a title that makes zero sense, but we loved it anyway. Yup, you read that right. Wham Bam Shang-A-Lang.
Starry nights, sunny days, I always thought the...
It sounds like something out of a cartoon, but in 1976, it was on the radio non-stop. The band behind it? Silver. Not a household name, but they had a hidden gem of a lineup. One of their members, Brent Mydland, would go on to play with the Grateful Dead. This track was all about easygoing pop rock vibes, catchy chorus, a sunny feel, and lyrics that didn't really matter as long as you were grooving.
Baby, we've been alone.
It peaked at number 16 on the Billboard charts. Not bad for a song nobody could explain. And get this, it found a second life decades later when it showed up in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Baby, this is not what it seems.
Soup.
Suddenly, Wham Bam Shang-A-Lang was back, and younger fans were singing along. But Silver, they broke up a couple years later. One hit, and that was it. Coming up next, what happens when you give Beethoven a pair of bell-bottoms and drop him in a disco? Now here's a remix no one saw coming. Beethoven, but make it disco. Walter Murphy, a classically trained musician, thought it'd be cool to take Beethoven's famous Fifth Symphony and give it a funky twist. The result? A Fifth of Beethoven. It was bold, weird, and honestly, it worked. The song shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and ended up selling over 2 million copies. Part of its success came from being included in the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. Which pretty much made anything on it go gold. Murphy didn't have another solo hit like this again, but he kept working behind the scenes in music and TV. Still, a Fifth of Beethoven proved that even the most serious classical pieces could get down on the dance floor. Next, let's talk about a song that feels like a summer night with the windows rolled down. Picture this: warm breeze, starry sky, and a track that sounds like it was made for slow drives by the beach. That's Moonlight Feels Right by Starbuck.
Moonlight feels right.
Released at the tail end of '75, the song didn't catch on until spring of '76. But once it hit the radio, it soared, climbing to number 3 on the Billboard chart.
Sit back and observe the constellations and watch the moon smile.
What made it special? Smooth vocals, dreamy synths, and a marimba solo. Yes, really. That kind of stopped you in your tracks. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, it just felt good. The band was based out of Atlanta, and Bruce Blackman, who wrote and produced the song, gave it that soft rock, floaty vibe that hit perfectly in the post-hippie, pre-disco pocket of time. Starbuck had other songs, but none of them stuck like this one. It's a tune that makes you nostalgic even if you weren't there, and that's saying something. Now, ready for a song that wasn't even supposed to be a full track, but became a theme we'll never forget? This one hits you in the feels.
Welcome back to that same.
Welcome Back by John Sebastian wasn't just a song, it was a hug in musical form.
Where we need ya. We tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot.
It started as a TV theme. Yep, it was the opener for Welcome Back, Kotter, the sitcom that introduced the world to a young John Travolta. Sebastian, who used to front the Lovin' Spoonful, originally wrote the theme to be just under a minute. But fans loved it so much, they begged for a full version. So he delivered.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome.
In March 1976, it was released as a single and made it all the way to number 1 on the Billboard charts. It was mellow, heartfelt, and packed with just the right amount of nostalgia. Ironic, since it was brand new at the time. Sebastian didn't land another big solo hit after this. But honestly, with a song like Welcome Back, one was all he needed. Okay, now let's talk about a song that's basically sunshine in audio form. Let Your Love Flow is the kind of track that just radiates good vibes. No drama, no overthinking, just pure feel-good energy. The Bellamy brothers, David and Howard, were mostly behind-the-scenes guys before this song. Then in January 1976, they recorded Let Your Love Flow. Written by Larry E. Williams, and everything changed. The song went all the way to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and top charts around the world, from Germany to Switzerland. It wasn't country, it wasn't disco. It was just a simple, catchy anthem about letting love lead the way. And it worked. Even though the Bellamy brothers would go on to find big success in country music later on, this would be their only major pop hit. Still, you've heard it in movies, TV shows, road trip playlists. It's the soundtrack to rolling down the windows and singing at the top of your lungs. Up next, a high-energy disco jam that practically dares you not to dance. Maxine Nightingale's Breakout, hit right back where we started from, is the definition of infectious.
Oh, we gotta get right back to where we started from. Love is good.
The beat kicks in, and suddenly you're in a 1976 dance hall, spinning under a disco ball.
Love is good. Love can be strong. We gotta get right back to where we.
It's It's upbeat, punchy, and impossible not to sing along with. Originally recorded in 1975 but released in the US in early '76, the song climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. And while Nightingale was hesitant to even record it at first, it ended up being her biggest hit. She came from a background in British soul and musical theater, which probably explains the big, bold delivery. The chorus hits like a shot of joy. Maxine kept performing, but nothing else reached the same level. Still, this song stuck around. Movies, ads, retro playlists. It refuses to disappear. Okay, buckle up, because next is a track that came from one of the most unexpected music careers of the decade. Andrea True had one of the most unusual roads to pop stardom. Before hitting the charts, she was actually an adult film actress. When political restrictions in Jamaica left her unable to wire money back to the US, she did the only logical thing. She used the funds to record a song. Enter More, More, More. It was sultry, hypnotic, and backed by a thumping disco beat. Released in February 1976, it climbed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was a number 1 in Canada. The lyrics were bold, the chorus addictive, and the vibe 100% disco. Andrea True never had another hit this big, but for one perfect moment, she went from adult film sets to the top of the pop charts. And coming up, a TV theme song that turned into an unlikely radio hit. You know this one from the opening line, Sunday, Monday, Happy Days. It was the theme to one of the most beloved sitcoms of the 70s, Happy Days.
Hello, sunshine, goodbye, rain. She's wearing my school ring on her chain.
But in 1976, the theme song itself became a hit. Recorded by Pratt and McLean and written by Norman Gimbel and Charles Fox, the track was pure nostalgia, meant to reflect the innocence of the 1950s, wrapped in a 70s rock and roll vibe. It replaced Rock Around the Clock as the show's intro and quickly caught on with audiences. It peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hit the charts in the UK, too. Pratt and McLean didn't have any other hits, but their voices are forever connected to Fonzie, Richie, and all those feel-good sitcom memories. Now let's take a turn, because this next band wasn't forgotten. But their very first chart hit? That one gets overlooked. Before the Cars became new wave legends, they made their first splash with a track that had a little bit of everything: catchy synths, punchy guitars, and a hook that didn't let go. Let's Go came out in 1976 and was their big introduction to the world.
Let's go!
It mixed rock and synth pop in a way that felt fresh, energetic, and radio ready. Written by Rick Ocasek with keyboards by Greg Hawkes, the song gave us that iconic "I like the nightlife, baby" line that would stick around for decades. While the Cars would go on to have massive success later on, Let's Go was that first chart taste, setting the tone for everything they'd become. It wasn't their only hit, but it often gets overshadowed by the rest of their catalog. Still, it deserves its place on this list as one of 1976's standout one-hit intros. But now it's time for some real fire. No, seriously, this next track lit up every disco floor it touched. If Burn Baby Burn doesn't instantly ring a bell, you probably weren't at the disco.
Disco Inferno, yeah.
Disco Inferno by the Tramps was more than a song. It was a disco battle cry. Released in 1976, it didn't blow up right away. But when it got picked for the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack a year later, total explosion. The song became a dance floor essential and helped define the era. Its pounding beat and fiery lyrics made it a favorite in clubs, movies, and just about anywhere people wanted to move. The Tramps kept making music, but this was their high point. And what a high point it was. Up next, our final entry, a song that tells you exactly what to do in the title. Get Up and Boogie. That's it. That's the song.
That's right.
Silver Convention was a German disco group already known for their earlier hit, Fly Robin Fly. But in 1976, they dropped this follow-up, and it was a straight-up dance command.
Get up and boogie.
With its repetitive lyrics and high-energy beat, it climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became a club favorite. All over again. The simplicity was the magic. You didn't need deep lyrics or complex structure, just a groove that got people on their feet. Silver Convention didn't manage to top that moment, but Get Up and Boogie kept spinning long after they faded from the charts. And with that, we've reached the end of our retro time warp. So there you have it, 15 unforgettable one-hit wonders from 1976. Some were funky, some were sweet, and some still make you want to dance like nobody's watching. They didn't all last, but for that one moment, they were everywhere. Which one of these took you back? Or maybe made you hit replay? Let us know in the comments. And if you loved this trip through the vinyl stacks of 76, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Retro Waves. We've got more music memories on the way. Until then, keep the record spinning.